In 1922, comedy producer Hal Roach assembled the Little Rascals, a filthy-faced gaggle of anarchistic ragamuffins wreaking havoc in the streets of Los Angeles. In the summer of 1993, subculture icon Larry Clark put together the cast of Kids, a filthy-faced gaggle of anarchistic ragamuffins playing sexual suicide in the streets of New York City. I grew up watching the Little Rascals, but I almost threw up watching Kids for the first time, and I mean that as the ultimate compliment. I first saw Kids at the Enzian Cinema Cafe in Maitland, Florida when I was 25. I was working for Walt Disney's Epcot Center as a street performer at the time, which I've spoken about here on the show. No, I wasn't wearing a giant goofy head, Joe. Suffice it to say, it was a very frustrating time for me in my life, angry even. Not only did I not belong in the job respectfully, I sure as shit didn't belong in Orlando, Florida. No, I would have to fight to find my folly on the CDOBT, aka Orange Blossom Trail. The Enzian truly saved my life at that time. You could drink there, and most of the films they showed were edgy, art house curios you could not find anywhere else. Especially in Mickeyville, are you kidding me? And I saw the NC-17 rated Kids there too, not the R-rated version. Turns out there was no difference in the end, because Harvey and Bob Weinstein bought the worldly rights to Kids for $3.5 million, eventually grossing $20 million worldwide. So why was this dingy little documentary-like drama with pitch-black comedy elements such a success? I'll tell you why. Because the movie is a motherfucking revelation, a shot to the face, a wake-up call, a punch to the penis, a firecracker to the cunt, a slap to the system, a punk-filled pop to Urbania, a roaring disease lion, a raucous reveille, an enigmatic enema, an antidote to apathy. Why Kids is not an unavoidable viewing prerequisite for hormone-plagued middle school attending monkeys in this messed up country of ours confounds me to no end. A more durable tool of contraception for minors has never been better constructed. Joe, would you show this movie to your kids? You should think about it. Had I seen Kids when I was 15, the year I plugged my first poon pocket, bitch, I would have waited. Kids! It's such an artfully accurate announcement that condoms must come in bags of corn nuts, no matter Telly's resistance to them. And it spawned the awesomely alternative careers of Clark, actress who knows no fear Chloe Sevigny, actor, skateboarder, gallery owner Leo Fitzpatrick, who Tom and I had the giddy pleasure of chatting with, and writer Harmony Korine, who none of us on this show can evidently get enough of. It has it all. So is it an AIDS movie per se? Yes, I'd say. And if it was made in the R-Gang era by Hal Roach, it would go something like this. Alfalfa Spritzer has syphilis. He can't stop poking all the hot young tarts in the junkyard. Unfortunately, he's infecting them all with his afflicted fuckstick. He is a young, untamed, uninformed, unintelligent animal, purely driven by desire and lust. And when he finally shoves his bacteria-riddled rod past Darla Hood's hood, why, he destroys her life in an instant. It doesn't help that his best friend is the unscrupulous, hoagie-huffing Spanky McFarlane, whose body odor is so bad even Petey the Pooch won't come near him. Oh, I could go ahead and compare Buckwheat to Harold Hunter, but that would just be obvious, stupid, and a little racist.
Yeah.
So what am I left to do here, kids? Ooh, I know. How about imagining if all the kids in the movie Kids were real-life young people at the time? Chances are, most of them would be dead by now. The dopest ghosts in town.
Oh boy, Max, there's no doubt about it that this is one of those movies that just kicks you in the stomach, and that pain lingers on for decades. And I, like you, had the pleasure of seeing this when it was in the theater. Joe, you and I were living together at the time in New Brunswick, and I saw Siskel and Ebert promoted this movie. And they used to, like, their shows, they would give you, what's coming out the following week. And they were all over this movie, all over it. And I'm like, I got to check this out. It just looks so fascinating. Lo and behold, a theater in Perth Amboy was playing this movie. and I went and saw it, and it was a revelation, man. It really, really scared me. It scared me so much, Joe, that I thought I had AIDS after I saw it. I kid you not. I thought about every single time I had unprotected sex, and I convinced myself that I had the virus. I even made a 1-800 phone call to an AIDS hotline.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how haunting this movie was to me. Which I mean, I cannot say enough that this is a must-see, really a must-see for almost everyone in the United States, Joe.
Yeah, it's a pretty astonishing film. It's got a lot of power, man. It's pretty incredible. I remember seeing it when I was younger, right around that same period too. I don't remember. I remember being really captivated by the lifestyle that they were portraying, but not being so. I don't know, like being freaked out about the AIDS thing. But it was so long ago, man. It didn't resonate with me, I guess, to the point that it resonated with you guys. Though I definitely liked it when I saw it. I'd only seen it once before, so going back to it now was really
So let's
intense.
focus on that. Going back to it, being a father and having a boy and a girl. They're both teenagers now, right, Joe?
Yeah, 15 and 12. Yeah, 12.
And I'm assuming you watched
14 and 12.
You watched this with your wife.
I did not. No,
you watched,
not this
you
time.
watched it on your own?
Yes, I did.
So, I mean, what's playing through your mind? I mean, was it more haunting this time around?
Well, no, actually, no. Listen, you know what? I do kind of remember watching this film and feeling actually pretty close to it in a lot of ways. I think I remember thinking that it was just an exaggerated version of some of the shit that I had seen when I was a kid. Like when I was a kid, man, when I was in high school, I was doing really bad shit, man. When I was way too young, like not to the extent as this stuff, as these, like I just felt like, oh well, that I think when I left the theater I was like, oh well, this is just an exaggeration of what's actually going on. Although I recognized what was going on, like I felt like I related to what was happening with these kids, because I grew up very close to the city. I'd spent a lot of time in the city. When I was 16,
right.
We'd go every weekend and spend time down there, the lower East Side. Down in the village, all that shit. I was a skater. My friends and I were doing way too many drugs way too early. And like we were basically scorned by our peers when we were younger. Like it was bad. So like going back to this now, even now, like I think that Max hit it right on the head that I saw this more as a cautionary tale.
Right.
Because because the kids who would see it related it to it more, like it hit home more than something like an after school special where all the kids are peachy keen and like not doing stuff and then they happen to get it like that way. You know what I mean? Like this spoke their language, and I felt like this spoke my language when I saw it. When I was initially, I guess I was probably 22 and probably about 4 years past being 16, 17 years old, right. Something like that. So seeing it now in relation to my kids, I have this thing now, like part of my problem with raising my kid is that he's he's 14, my girl's 12, she's still really a kid. He's starting to get into that age where I was doing shit that I really was not supposed to be doing, but he's such a good kid and excels at everything in so many ways that it's weird for me to think that my behavior at 14, 15 years old is not normal, and what he's doing is really, and how he's behaving is really healthy and is normal. You know what I mean?
Were you having sex at that young of an age?
Yeah, 15.
15.
Yeah. Yeah. But more than that, we were we were smoking pot, we were drinking, smoking cigarettes, we're going down. I had a complete lack of parental guidance, and that's why like there were like it was all like the friggin' misfits, like kids who were just like fuck you. We were getting fucking high every weekend. Like on railroad tracks. Like it's 15, 16 years old. Right. 14, Tom. My friend Travis, I don't know if you ever met him. He was in freaking rehab at 16 years old. Not like early 16. So like when I see this, it doesn't really shock me.
It doesn't shock you. Yeah.
No, but what I'm saying, and with my son is he's so more advanced, surpassing me in almost every level. What I'm trying to come to terms with is trying not to expect that what he should be doing is going out and getting loaded in the woods.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's like, I'm kind of coming from the opposite end, and he's such a good kid. I mean, he's great. I don't want to sound like a fucking dad who's boasting about his kid. You know what I mean?
No, of course not.
But that's how I'm dealing. That's basically how I'm falling and perceiving this right now.
It's funny you mentioned that this is something that should be viewed as a cautionary tale. It makes me wonder if there are, and I'm sure there are, just as many people out there that watch this movie as, like thinking that this is really cool stuff and they want to emulate this, a la, like, say when someone watches Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket and they go out and join the Marine Corps.
Yeah, well, you can't help glorifying those things, but in the end, those people are going to be participating in that, behaving in those kinds of ways, regardless of not whether they see this. And for them to see that this is like, at the very least, what this will help them understand if they're gonna behave like this is to freaking practice protected. That's essentially what this is doing. It's making kids aware that they need to, be protecting sex and not abstain, and not trying to tell them to abstain, because that's futile. You know what I mean? So this is more effective than something that, you would see in a health class, because these kids understand these kids in this movie, you know what I mean?
Right.
And like in the end, even if you're going to glorify all this shit, or I know what you're saying, man. I mean, it's like in danger of normalizing this behavior. Right.
Max, what's amazing about kids, I mean, there's so many amazing things about it, but like, going back to us talking to Leo Fitzpatrick, which, by the way, everyone can click on the interview that Max and I did with Leo Fitzpatrick right next to this episode, was that Larry Clark was, Max, in his early 50s, right? When he put this whole thing together. He never directed a movie before. And, I mean, he was a kind of a well-known artist in New York City. He was doing photography work, but he winds up hanging around the skateboard society in New York City, and comes up with the story, hires Harmony Korine to write the screenplay. I mean, it's amazing that this is a vision that's initiated by someone like that's 50-something years old. I mean, that's outstanding.
Well, it certainly gives me hope that my greatest work might still be ahead of me.
I love that. Absolutely, man.
Because I've been feeling like a fucking loser lately. But yeah, no, I mean, it all came together for him with that, and then it spawned some other tremendous films, with the same collaborators, sometimes and sometimes not. You have Bully and What's Up Rockers, and Ken Park, which I think is so awesome and crazy.
You really glorify Ken Park as a masterpiece, Max.
Well, not on the level of kids, believe me, but I think everything that Clark was doing, I wouldn't say well, maybe. I don't know.
I think this is a masterpiece.
This is a masterpiece, definitely.
Yeah.
This is a seamless film. This is a repeat offender. I've seen this movie so many times. It's like, how many more times do I have to watch this really disturbing film with these androgynous young children? It's so amazing when you watch, like, oh, what are the fates of all these kids? Because even when they're really little, like all those little brown boys sitting on the couch.
I love that.
I mean, they look like girls, but they're just so funny. But then they look like boys, and it's like, oh yeah, we all start out boy and girl like, and then we develop our sexual identities or whatever, And it's just such a mind blower. And I'd really love to see Clark's photography,
Yeah, that's something that it's funny. Of all the things in preparation for the show, I didn't look into that, and I should have. I wound up.
It would be so easy to just call the dude a pedophile,
right?
But I really think he just finds young people utterly compelling.
Well, I think that's what Leo Fitzpatrick was conveying to us, right, Max?
Yeah.
He was basically saying that to this day, Clark remains a father figure to him. He sees him once a week, he said, Joe.
Was he saying that he's a pedophile or no?
No. He said that it's unfortunate that could be that's a popular misperception.
Yeah, he's been accused of being like, a pedophilic pervert.
Yeah,
Liking young,
especially in his artwork, Joe.
I had that impression just from what I've seen of his stuff, but I have no idea, obviously.
Right. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Every film that he makes is centered around pretty much teenagers. I mean, What's Up Rockers, Bully, Kids. What's the second movie? What's the follow-up he did to Kids, Max? With James
Another
Woods?
Day in Paradise.
Yeah. I mean, there he has James Woods and who is it?
Melanie
Griffith. But the main focus is on the people that they're kind of schooling.
Yes. Younger.
Yeah, to a younger couple. The focus is really there, and that's a real interesting movie too, Joe. It's got an R&B score to it.
I haven't seen that one
and
forever either, but I remember liking it.
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to rewatch that. I wound up watching Bully, and I wound up watching What's Up Rockers for the first time actually.
How'd you like it, Tom?
Yeah, I really really enjoyed it. It's just again, it's amazing how he has this. How can I explain it? Like he could take it's not like a movie needs to be about anything with him. It's like he's best when he could just capture these like little moments in time and make them so fucking real. And that's what he really does in What's Up Rockers. I mean, almost better than Kids at some point, at sometimes where it's just you're like living in this ultra reality. It's like I mean, it is reality.
It's just taking a really unblinking look at what's going on around them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what struck me most about the direction of this film was how truthful some of those moments are. They're friggin' incredible, man.
Yeah.
Like that scene on the subway where that legless.
I have no legs.
I have no legs.
But the funny thing is, man, like, and they'll stop and they'll like listen to them playing music on the subway and all that stuff. Like, if you walk around New York, I mean, those are those moments that, like, they happen to you, but because you're in the middle of so much other stuff, you don't take the time to look at. Like, it doesn't really.
I would short circuit. That sounds so awesome.
It's just crazy, man. Like, and like just moments where those kids, like in the beginning, they just pull over to the side and piss on the side of a building. You know what I mean?
Right,
like
right on the street corner.
Yeah, like it's like, oh yeah, I remember doing it.
But I missed that part of myself, Joe.
Well, come on, Tom, you're not 16.
I know, but
you're not a disrespectful little punk.
I know, but I would do something like that. When I was a kid. Don't you miss? Hey, Joe, even you said in a review one time, I think for Jackass, that, we get it wrong as adults, that we're all kids masquerading as adults, It's a shame. I mean, these are your words, if I may quote you, Joe.
In a sense, man. But, you move on. There's beautiful things about different parts of life, man. That's the key, is to find what's great about the point of life that you're in while you're in it. That's the key. That's the secret.
Right. Max, how many times did you watch this movie in preparation for this episode?
I've seen it. Well, I own it.
No, tell me how many times you watched it in the past 10 days.
Well, I'm up to 4.
Oh, that's amazing. That's how
it doesn't help that the soundtrack is so goddamn good, and I own that too. And I dug that out and threw that on my Nano. Folk Implosion, Daniel Johnston. I mean. So much good stuff, and the What's Up Rockers soundtrack it destroys too, especially if you're into punk.
Yeah.
But I have a direct line to skateboard culture, and I've never been on a skateboard. I had a Hulk skateboard when I was a kid, and and it was so lame, and I was so bad at it. But I gotta tell you, fellas, I think that. If I could go back in time, I think I'd be a little skateboard punk, because I go over here. There's a skate park that Rob Dyrdek built right over here in North Hollywood Park, and it's like it's the only time I'll feel a little creepy, because I go over there and I'm watching all these young boys flipping ollies and hitting the vert ramp and
Flipping ollies.
and when I'm up in Cayucas, there's a Cayucas skate park up there. Same story. I get entranced. I like walk over and I'm looking at all the little Bam Margeras. Like, wow, those guys are so cool. But it's like, ew, I'm a 43-year-old dude looking at little boys on skateboards. I got to get out of here. But Larry Clark, he doesn't have that problem. He sees the
he'll sit there and
story.
he'll befriend them.
Yeah,
have them over. Man,
yeah.
I know what you're saying. You're sitting there. You're like, you can only imagine how you feel, Max.
God, it's so wrong.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, it shouldn't be, but it is. Max, I know you know a lot about this movie, and when we talked to Leo Fitzpatrick, we talked about Clark kind of paved the way for a few careers from some of these young actors: Chloe Sevigny, Leo Fitzpatrick, John Abrams, just to name a couple. But there are a couple of them that wound up dying, unfortunately.
Right.
One of them is Justin Pierce, who played Casper in the movie, died just maybe only 5 or 6 years after this film. And Harold Hunter as well?
Yeah, Harold Hunter died of a drug overdose. Justin Pierce killed himself.
And it's interesting about Hunter because he was kind of like the ringleader with all these guys, right? Like he was the go-to guy. He was the guy everyone looked up to. Max, if just even a little bit about Hunter, I mean, he had the kind of personality that everyone was drawn to, huh?
I think the politics of the kids you see in the film were already established in Washington Square when Clark showed up. And I think what they did with Casper, which is, it is truly one of the most amazing scenes. If you're a sick fuck like me, and I do this now and again just to remind myself of how screwed up the world is, you go to a site called Best Gore, and it's real clips from all over the world of death and violence and all the stuff that we don't see in the media, okay? I'm going to bring this back to kids, but I can't help but watch these few clips where, like, some random village in Brazil guy is a thief, and next thing you know, he's out in the middle of the street, and there's 20 dudes around him in flip-flops beating the living shit out of him because he's a thief. And there's no police stopping them. Casper gets supposedly disrespected by that dude who, bumps into or whatever. Mm-hmm. But he's already walking into a trap because next thing you know, those are the allegiances. All those kids pounce on that black dude and beat the living shit out of him, almost kill him. And then later on, they're all sitting around indifferently talking about, well, I think he killed him. No, I didn't kill him. He was still breathing. No, I think he killed him. And then that's going to be distracted by the swimming pool scene. Oh, let's go swim in the pool. So you start to get this really awful feeling of like indifference. Like, not only are these kids just polluting each other sexually and spreading disease like crazy, but they're little killers too. Yeah. And I think that I think a guy like Hunter, I mean, honestly, I don't know enough about the guy to say. I mean, Leo would know better than we would, but I definitely think he really was in real life the ringleader of that crew there in the park.
Right. What's funny too? What's genius about that scene also is how, and pretty much this whole movie is it's kind of raceless. The movie, like the allegiances are like black and white or black and Hispanic or white and Hispanic. You know what I'm saying? Like Clark. I mean, there's not a hint of any of that in this world that he's creating for the screen, which is fucking amazing. And that scene,
they're all just hanging out and making out and grabbing each other and groping and stealing and fucking and sucking and doing drugs and color be damned.
Yeah. Oh, it doesn't matter. Jesus Christ. Ugh. Disease, Joe. Disease.
Yes, the youth are diseased.
They are, man. 1 out of every 4 16 to 25-year-old is carrying some kind of an STD right now.
And then you hear things like the latest trend in kid fucking. It's like it's like anal is rampant now in the Midwest.
It is. It's so funny that you mentioned that because I working where I work, Joe and Max, I have the opportunity to be around the youth, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, almost on a daily basis, and the dudes were having this they almost speak in code. Like it's all code now. I like they're speaking an entirely different language that I can't understand. But these dudes were having this conversation. They're like, about how they're RMEA, and I'm like, what the? I'm like listening to it. I'm like, guys, I'm like, I'm just curious. I'm like, what are you talking about? What's RMEA? And he goes, oh, that's real men eat ass.
Yeah.
And then they're like grilling me about my sexual habits, and they're like, "What? You don't eat ass?" Like, I'm like, "No." I go. Not only have I never eaten ass, I've never fucked anybody's ass as well. Like, it just doesn't appeal to me. Like, it's an ass, and something shit comes out of. I'm not really into it.
Not on a girl.
What?
Not on a girl.
Well, look, whatever. People are into that, but I would never. Eating ass is just something that doesn't appeal to me. But my point is, but Max, wait, stop. What we're talking about here is that these kids, the young people today, they're just taking things a step further with their sexuality. It's not just like, well, let's get together and have sex. They want to stick their tongue up up someone's ass.
Well, Tom, I personally don't have a problem with that. When I lost my virginity, I was in the back seat of a Buick, and I accidentally put it inside my girlfriend's ass. I didn't know what I was doing.
But would you put your tongue in someone's ass, Max?
A girl's ass, if she was clean and I knew she was clean, absolutely.
You would. And Joe, you would too. Am I alone here?
Tom, it's an androgynous zone. And it's that when you sniff a woman's backside, pull down those panties or sniff her backside through her panties. Just sniff her ass crack.
He's always sniffing, Joe.
That salty sweat. She's putting out pheromones, man. We're animals. Why do you think dogs go up and sniff each other's assholes?
That's not.
I'm going up to girls and sniffing their assholes, goddammit. I will line up 12 women after a long day at work, and I will hike up each and every one of their skirts, and I will sniff their butt. I love it.
I don't want my sexual behavior to be compared to one of a dog.
All right, then a gorilla. You're a gorilla.
But I do want to know if Joe eats ass.
Joe loves ass.
I bet he does.
Joe gets Mrs. Mummy on all fours and sticks her ass in his face, and Joe goes to fucking town.
Did I mention that my lunch hour is just about over? It's 1 o'clock here on the East Coast, and been recording this during my lunch hour. And
we're almost done, Joe. Relax.
He's getting turned on, I bet.
I do want an answer to that question, though.
You're not gonna get one. I've made a new policy. No time. I won't confess to any ass-eating behavior on the show anymore.
I'm gonna text you later, Joe.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, text us both so we can get the answer through the text.
Max, you've never been to New York, huh? You got to come out, dude. You would fucking freak. You would freak out.
Everyone's been telling me that forever.
Come out with Adam. Come out with Adam, man. And that was the other thing that I was struck about this film and how how fucking amazing this movie is. Like we got to do one show or a couple of shows like are based on New York stories, man. It's fucking incredible how many of them there are out there. Man. Right. And this one is one of the greats, absolutely, because it finds a new angle to look at New York, a new lens to look at New York through, man. And it was incredible to look at the film like in that light. You know?
Right. And we're lucky too because 2 weeks from this recording, we're releasing on our season finale, Do the Right Thing, which is just
absolutely.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, those are
and at 12 Angry Men, even though it's all in a courtroom
that takes place in New York City?
I'm pretty sure it does. Well, those characters are definitely New York type characters.
Right.
We'll have to look at it. I haven't seen it in a long time.
Right. Yeah, but you're right though, man. There are so many great films that take place. I mean, just the Woody Allen's whole life.
I know, man. I know. And Spike Lee. I just watched Clockers last night. Right. But yeah, and this one's amazing. And related to this film, did you guys ever see that documentary, The Beautiful Losers? Because Harmony Korine was running with this group of artists in the early 90s, right around that. Yeah, and that's another New York tale about
Yeah,
this
it's really good.
this sort of like I forget what they called themselves. I guess the Beautiful Losers is what they called themselves, right? Officially, but they like this art scene that down there on the downtown, and I guess the Harmony Korine came out of it, and some other pretty influential artists or whatever working down there, punk skate artists, like just real weirdo type of shit, man. So it's a great documentary for anyone who's interested in Harmony Korine.
Do they talk about Larry Clark at all?
They talk about Korine, and it's really cool because they go to Harmony's hometown or whatever, and he's talking about these stories in the playground, and then they talk a bit about his Gummo and
because he lives in Nashville now.
Yes, yeah. Well, he was living in the city, obviously, but yeah, they go back to Nashville. It's a very funny interview, or like. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, and it was so funny because again, for our listeners, when you check out our Leo Fitzpatrick interview, Fitzpatrick talks about Korine, just for a couple minutes, but he says some interesting stuff about him. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But
yeah, I haven't listened to that interview. I'm going to click over there right now.
All right.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to it.
It sounds good.
Is it posted?
No, it'll be posting with this episode.
Okay.
The Leo Fitzpatrick interview, everyone, will be posted right next to this episode within the Band Played On Kids.
Releasing the same day.
Yeah, releasing the same day. So you can just go over there. It's its own entity. You can check it out, download it, do whatever you want with it, have fun with it. You can sniff it like it's someone's asshole or lick it like it's someone's asshole.
Are we still sweating AIDS anymore, really, as a society? I mean, we've kind of got it under control, I guess, as far as the HIV virus. Not many people blowing up into full-blown AIDS. Magic Johnson still walking around. I mean, I never hear about it anymore.
I know. That's what we were starting to talk about that before the blackout hit, and Tom had mentioned how quiet it was or whatever. It's true. I think people are living with it. They don't necessarily need to die. I think the people who die are those who are on, like Tom made a good point. That if you don't have money, then you're pretty much fucked.
But that's with anything,
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
But I think that the people who have it and who are fortunate enough, as everybody should be fortunate enough to get medication, the people who do die are the ones who kind of abuse themselves with drugs and alcohol and negative stuff. So
right. Well, I mean, because Magic Johnson has had it for 20 plus years.
Yeah,
and there's no quitting this guy.
Well, this reminds me of this, man. For a while back there in the 90s, people were putting forth this conspiracy theory. Here we go, conspiracy theory about
we have to talk about it. I mean,
it being a man-made disease because it infiltrated the poor,
undesirables,
the drug users, and the gays,
hookers, drug users, homosexuals.
And now I couldn't really,
deviants,
So now I couldn't really find anything on that. Now, like looking around for it. It seems to be the consensus that it came from, I guess, someone fucked an ape some point in the 60s or something. Is that what it is? That's what they're saying. It came from some cross virus from an ape or like a monkey.
Interesting.
Virus.
Yeah, because I mean, if it was man-made, you would, and it was a conspiracy, led by the more powerful people, like the rightist, Republican people, hookers, homosexuality, sexual deviance. These are all symbols of the Republican Party.
Well, I would say conservative Christian, like religious nuts. I don't know about.
Yes, exactly.
Tom, I have no interest in sniffing the behind of a female gorilla, for the record.
It doesn't turn you on, a hairy ape ass?
No. I've seen what they do in those zoos.
Oh my God.
Terrible things. They're always picking their asses and throwing it and sniffing it and ugh.
That's what you do.
I don't pick my ass and sniff. That's disgusting.
I'm surprised that that's not one of your favorite activities.
Oh, Tom, you just don't get it.
You don't know him, Tom. He's afraid of his own ass. He's afraid to touch his ass. I think he's very clean. What are you talking about?
Why keep butt wipes, man? How many times
why would he put his finger in his ass?
Yeah, that's why he
sit there.
That's why he uses. That's why he uses the booty butt wipes, so he could smell his clean ass. He likes the smell of clean ass.
I've never inserted with the exception of the occasional hemorrhoid I used to get, I've never inserted a own digit in my ass. I immediately wash my hands afterward.
This is how angry he gets. Don't You don't mess with Max. I'll tell you that right now, Joe.
Mess with me.
You're afraid of Max, huh?
Not anymore. I'm standing up for myself. Well, listen, guys, I want to thank you both very much for being a part of the past 2 episodes. I had a lot of fun. I want to remind everyone that they can check out our interview with Leo Fitzpatrick right next to this episode.
Oh, hey, you're going to go into plugs. Let me just plug this. Ronnie was on our show a couple of weeks ago. His CD is out. I'm going to put links up on the post. That's it. Ron Muga.
Okay. Anything else, Joe?
That's it, Tom. Sorry to interrupt.
No.
His CD is out. It's great.
Does Ron Muga like eating ass, Joe? Can we say that?
I think so. I think he sings about that, actually.
He does?
It's a theme of his album, yeah. Eating. He's got the eating ass song.
The Cutting Room Movie Podcast is brought to you by Christiana Productions and New Media Limited. The show is edited and co-produced by Joseph Schreck and produced by Thomas Stetlove and Joe Christiana. You can follow us on Facebook at The Cutting Room Movie Podcast and follow me on Twitter, Thomas Stetlove at TCRM Podcast. You can also check out Joe's film work. Joe, you got a new movie coming out.
That's right. Yes, I do.
And now is the new movie up on ChristianaProductions.com. I know you have a trailer. You have a trailer out there.
Yes, you put a trailer.
It looks
out there,
really
yes.
good.
Yes, it's good. It's crazy.
I'm loving it.
I love that trailer.
It's a good one. All right, let him go do that. I just want you to know that you can check out Joe's trailer at ChristianaProductions.com or on the Christiana Productions YouTube channel. You can also check out Max Cooks and Adam Shoulders, Bowler Hat Productions, and their Mimosa podcast show at maxcookandthecounselor.com. Music from The Cutting Room is done by the Zillatones, and you can check them out at www.thezillatones.com or search for the Zillatones at reverbnation.com. We are going to be back next week. This is it. The last 2 weeks of this season is coming up, and we're going to do a new DVD release review of the 2013 film Labor Day, all leading up to our big season finale. We're doing summer heat movies, 12 Angry Men, and Do the Right Thing by Spike Lee. Until then, people, we're almost done, but for now, we are over and we are out. Ciao.
An antidote to apathy. Why Kids is not an unavoidable viewing Why Kids is not an unavoidable viewing Why Kids is not an unavoidable viewing prerequisite.
You ready to
Why Kids is not an unavoidable. Why Kids is not an unavoidable viewing prerequisite for. Tune in next time to satisfy more of your strange desires. The Cutting Room Movie Podcast. We do chicken right.
You know what's coming out the following week, and they were all over this movie, all over it. And I'm like, I gotta check this out. It just looks so fascinating. Lo and behold, a theater in Perth Amboy was playing this movie, and I went and saw it, and it was a revelation, man. It really, really scared me. It scared me so much, Joe, that I thought I had AIDS after I saw it. I kid you not. I thought about every single time I had unprotected sex, and I convinced myself that I had the virus. I even made a 1-800 phone call to an AIDS hotline. Mm-hmm. Like, that's how haunting this movie was to me. Which, I mean, I cannot say enough that this is a must-see, really a must-see for almost everyone in the United States, Joe.
Yeah, it's a pretty astonishing film. It's got a lot of power, man. It's pretty incredible. I remember seeing it when I was younger, right around that same period too. I remember being really captivated by the lifestyle that they were portraying.
Got it. Had I seen Kids when I was 15, the year I plugged my first poon pocket, bitch, I would have waited. Kids. It's such an artfully accurate announcement that condoms must come in bags of corn nuts, no matter Telly's resistance to them. and it spawned the awesomely alternative careers of Clark, actress who knows no fear Chloe Sevigny, actor, skateboarder, gallery owner Leo Fitzpatrick, who Tom and I had the giddy pleasure of chatting with, and writer Harmony Korine, who none of us on this show can evidently get enough of. It has it all. So is it an AIDS movie per se? Yes, I'd say. And if it was made in the R-Gang era by Hal Roach, it would go something like this. Alfalfa Spritzer has syphilis. He can't stop poking all the hot young tarts in the junkyard. Unfortunately, he's infecting them all with his afflicted fuckstick. He is a young, untamed, uninformed, unintelligent animal, purely driven by desire and lust. And when he finally shoves his bacteria-riddled rod past Darla Hood's hood, art house curios you cannot find anywhere else, especially in Mickeyville. Are you kidding me? And I saw the NC-17 rated kids there too, not the R-rated version. Turns out there was no difference in the end, because Harvey and Bob Weinstein bought the worldly rights to kids for $3.5 million, eventually grossing $20 million worldwide. So why was this dingy little documentary-like drama with pitch-black comedy elements such a success? I'll tell you why. Because the movie is a motherfucking revelation, a shot to the face, a wake-up call, a punch to the penis, a firecracker to the cunt, a slap to the system, a punk-filled pop to Urbania, a roaring disease lion, a raucous reveille, an enigmatic enema, an antidote to apathy. Why Kids is not an unavoidable viewing prerequisite for hormone-plagued middle school attending monkeys in this messed up country of ours confounds me to no end. A more durable tool of contraception for minors has never been better constructed. Joe, would you show this movie to your kids? You should think about it. In 1922, comedy producer Hal Roach assembled the Little Rascals, a filthy-faced gaggle of anarchistic ragamuffins wreaking havoc in the streets of Los Angeles. In the summer of 1993, subculture icon Larry Clark put together the cast of Kids, a filthy-faced gaggle of anarchistic ragamuffins playing sexual suicide in the streets of New York City. I grew up watching the Little Rascals, but I almost threw up watching Kids for the first time, and I mean that as the ultimate compliment. I first saw Kids at the Enzian Cinema Cafe in Maitland, Florida when I was 25. I was working for Walt Disney's Epcot Center as a street performer at the time, which I've spoken about here on the show. No, I wasn't wearing a giant goofy head, Joe. Suffice it to say, it was a very frustrating time for me in my life, angry even. Not only did I not belong in the job respectfully, I sure as shit didn't belong in Orlando, Florida. No, I would have to fight to find my folly on the CDOBT, aka Orange Blossom Trail. The Enzian truly saved my life at that time. You could drink there, and most of the films they showed were edgy. Why he destroys her life in an instant. It doesn't help that his best friend is the unscrupulous, hoagie-huffing Spanky McFarland, whose body odor is so bad even Petey the Pooch won't come near him. Oh, I could go ahead and compare Buckwheat to Harold Hunter, but that would just be obvious, stupid, and a little racist.
Yeah.
So what am I left to do here, kids? Ooh, I know. How about imagining if all the kids in the movie Kids were real-life young people at the time? Chances are, most of them would be dead by now. The dopest ghosts in town.
Oh boy, Max, there's no doubt about it that this is one of those movies that just kicks you in the stomach, and that pain lingers on for decades. And I, like you, had the pleasure of seeing this when it was in the theater. Joe, you and I were living together at the time in New Brunswick, and I saw Siskel and Ebert promoted this movie. And they used to, like, their shows, they would give you